Hi everyone, welcome once again to the Action Movie Show. My name is Carlos Alcazar, and with me as always is Manyninjas. How's it going, Manyninjas?
I was promised rippled potato chips for my appearance today. I'm happy to be here.
Don't tell him that we don't have any chips, rippled or otherwise.
You probably shouldn't whisper that into the microphone when I'm still able to hear it. Damn you to hell. We're done here, folks.
So anyway, this week's show, eventually he'll find some rippled chips and he'll be fine. So for this week's show, I should say not for this so much for this week's show. This will be the show that kind of offsets the problem we had last week. So to kind of make up for it, we did the episode earlier this week, and then for this episode, we're going to cover the next movie that would have been this week's movie anyway. So for that, we have 2007's War, starring Jason Statham and Jet Li. It's one of the times that the two of them would be in a film together until I think there was one more. I'd have to think about it. But they did have another movie, as I recall, where they were in it together. But this is one of the few times that they were in the same movie together until the Expendables franchise, where obviously they ended up on the same side. So on this one, they are definitely on opposite ends of it. And that's kind of where we'll get started. I will read the brief synopsis. Allow me to use the back of the package here. After his partner is brutally murdered by the infamous assassin rogue, Jet Li, FBI agent Jack Crawford, Jason Statham, vows to find the elusive killer and personally avenge his partner's death. But Crawford's thirst for vengeance jeopardizes professional judgment, and as the violence escalates, he finds himself in the middle of a conflict between two rival Asian gangs. Now nothing is quite what it seems, and he must be prepared for war. You have to say it that way because it is in capital letters with an exclamation point. So, war. And Ninjas, your thoughts on war?
First of all, I was reminded in a text message I just received that technically I am contractually obligated for other reasons that I have to continue this episode. Following that, yes, you get the message already. Following that, generally regarding this film, war. Good God, y'all. What is this film good for? At least a one-time viewing, let's be honest now.
I think it's a little better than a one-time viewing. The movie does have its things. I'll tell you what. We'll definitely discuss a couple of elements of it, but why don't you just give your overall thoughts on the movie there? Go off a little bit, and I'll chime in with my own thoughts.
All right. In this case, since we're still on the non-spoiler review end of things, generally, it does take a little bit for this film to actually get interesting. I'm going to be quite honest on that one. Even after reviewing is the first bit where they're pretty much just kind of setting up into how we get back to the modern day section is a little off, to be honest. It does. Honestly, it took a while to actually get interesting as I remember. Oh yeah, I'm actually supposed to care about what's going on the screen for some reason. And most of the film, although it specifically mentions the Crawford character, most of the time played by action bald man Jason Statham, to be honest, the majority of the film is actually mostly about the character Rogue himself, which makes sense really because the original working title for the film was actually Rogue, and they had to change it for legal reasons. Mostly it was, I believe, conflicting with the previous trademark off the top of my head. Although it did keep part of the thing, part of the title, Rogue Assassin, in other regions. So realistically, it was kind of misleading there with the description how it was talking about Crawford's character, when realistically, Rogue is the vast majority of the film, and it may leave most of the time when he's around. It tends to be the slightly better parts of the film. Action sequences are generally pretty nice, but it does take a while to get around there, and I can't say too much more in the non-spoiler version, so I'd like to continue some of the comments later on, though, before. But generally, I'd say an okay film. Not the greatest film we watched there. At least it really is at least worth the one viewing.
Yeah, no, I'll say that. I think I'll agree with the idea that the movie starts off kind of slow. It's funny because the main idea, and it's kind of emphasized. You just look at the cover art and the way everything is set up. You've got the two stars here kind of looking at, facing off against each other, looking at one another. You look at the back here, you've got, some lovely art here between these two guys. These two, their confrontation is the draw of the film. That's the main centerpiece to the whole thing. Well, they have a couple of scenes together, but they don't really come face to face per se until almost the halfway point of the movie. I say about 47, 48 minutes into the film, thereabouts. I'm basically guessing, but it had to be in that range. It was basically we were closing in on 50 minutes or almost an hour before the two of them actually were face to face, and they actually had some dialogue where they started confronting each other in some way. And then it still took a little while before they got to the big, all right, now we're going to have their fight scene. And that's really the end of the movie that leads into, the style that this film did. Without spoiling anything, really, the style of this movie is pretty common for the genre. You've got your whole build-up to the final confrontation, but in the final confrontation, all is revealed. You really... towards the end, right at the end of the movie, you really find out what the whole point of it was, which is, it's the right thing to do. If you give the damn thing away, we've had movies where basically you gave away the point, and then it had to continue beyond that, and then you were kind of wondering why. So I would say the movie, I think, is solid. It's kind of like, if you put it on a scale, I'd put it kind of like as like a 7 out of 10. It's not outstanding by any stretch of the imagination, but it's solid. It's you could put it on rotation, and I wouldn't have any hesitation about watching the film. Obviously, I own it, so and I've seen it before. I had no issue going back to watch it again. So from that standpoint, it's right solidly kind of in that solid range.
All right. Now that we've gotten past the non-spoiler part, now I can talk a little more freely about some of the elements in the film. Namely, the first big point is, although, like I said, on the packaging end, at least at the start of the film, we were playing most of the things through Crawford's general point of view. You have to understand, when you're dealing with the Crawford character, he's actually an unreliable narrator, at least at the very start of how the film is being set up there. And as Carlos mentioned, the real gotcha moment near the end of the film is when we learn, because most of the film is spent on Rogue's character, that we learn exactly what Rogue's motivation is throughout the course of the film, which I believe... Is it free for me to say what it is?
1 second. If you're at this point of the video, he's going to spoil the ending. You have been warned. Go on.
All right. Up to this point of the film, nearing the end, we have the general rogue assassin, Rogue, the former CIA agent that pretty much decided to go off the land there, acting in a way that he was literally turning both sides against each other for both the Triad and the Yakuza. And only at the end do we finally learn the proper reasons why he had been orchestrating to take everyone down, although he had been working up to this point. As it would turn out, the whole kind of murder scene around the original CIA officer didn't exactly go down as planned, and the Rogue we've actually been watching this whole time, and which it wasn't particularly hinted well, although there are maybe one or two spots, particularly talking about the maybe the plastic surgeon, once they finally did track down one that was still alive. They didn't really hint this at all, where this becomes the big gotcha moment that it turns out Rogue all along was Tom, a.k.a. the CIA guy that was supposed to have been dead the whole time. Killed off at the beginning of the scene, Tom Lone. So, okay, why did he do all the thing and pretty much go through all the trouble? Because after everyone got hit, and effectively he was the only one to survive the incident, he had to destroy everything, and destroy basically all evidence that he's the one who survived, in order to take Rogue's place and start slowly, over a couple of years, tracking everyone down that was involved in the murder of his family, to eventually find out, or eventually find the person who actually ordered the hit, which was the Yakuza leader at the time, and get his revenge. So this has apparently been a revenge plot this whole time. Only with that revelation, we find out as a subsequent part of it, oh, you remember the guy we introduced, the guy who was supposed to be the main CIA guy left alive that we were talking about? Oh yeah, he's been trying to track you down, but as it turns out, he was actually working for us all along in the Yakuza, and he effectively sold you under the river. And that's why your entire family is dead, because he sold you out to save himself and his own family.
Dun dun dun. Yeah. To be honest, though, I think it was good the way they ended up doing it, because when they did the big reveal, and we'll kind of come back. Let's come back for a second. So we go through the whole story. It is a revenge story. It turns out to be two revenge stories. Jason Statham's character is presumably getting revenge for the murder of his partner. That's how he feels about it, and that's how he approached it, and that's how we see it as for the majority of the movie. In terms of hints, there weren't too many. I think the one piece they tried to emphasize, and they did throw it in there to try to give you a little bit of contrast to kind of show you something, is whereas the original Rogue didn't flinch or hesitate to kill women and children as part of a hit to eliminate all witnesses, it was no issue. And when the Yakuza asked them to eliminate the wife of the triad leader and the daughter, the original Rogue wouldn't have hesitated to do so. In fact, they wanted one of the other Yakuza men wanted to go in and bring back the severed heads as kind of a trophy. So the original Rogue would have been fine with that because they would have been killed anyway. They hinted at it, and you saw the hesitation. And in the end, he ended up faking it. And as soon as they actually tried to go in and create and claim this prize, that's when he turned on the other Yakuza men, killed them off. And the pictures of that are what ended up tipping off the Yakuza leader that something was up with Rogue, and that he hadn't followed the orders exactly, and that he had lied about it. So he had left basically witnesses to it, which in turn created the final sequences of the movie. So it did actually work well in the sense that by the time you reached the end of the movie, it started to all make a lot more sense. And also the revelation about Crawford's character, Jason Statham, also made a lot more sense about the depths of his obsession to get the revenge. Since he felt any guilt he would have felt about the betrayal that ended up killing, presumably his partner and his family, would then have made him far more obsessed about tracking down Rogue than even if he had done anything else, pretty much. Somebody's trying to track somebody down because they're trying to track them. Somebody's trying to get revenge for their partner. That's another level. But then somebody trying to get revenge for their partner because they inadvertently left the door open for that to happen and basically sold him out. That's another level of guilt entirely. And that could very easily lead to a level of obsession, which makes a lot more sense with the way Jason Statham's character played it out.
This is very true. Although, as a side note, I do recall there was one other spot which they actually do end up referencing near the very end of the film, particularly when Jason Statham's character Crawford ends up confronting Rogue, although he wasn't properly identified as Rogue at the time, inside of a kind of a parking garage set up or an empty warehouse, which had just been emptied in order to hide, I believe, it was the Triad operation, off the top of my head. And during this first real kind of physical showdown or scene involving the two, Crawford's character comments how Rogue's character would end up having to do a lot of plastic surgery to basically disguise their identity, but the one thing he couldn't change was his eyes, which is ironic because that'll be the exact same thing that Rogue's character would end up throwing right back in Crawford's face at the end of the film when he reveals it was Tom Lone all along. The one thing they couldn't change when they did all the rest of plastic surgery was the eyes. Although this might have been a little more effective if we had been able to see something that would show the original Rogue's eyes in much more clarity, because I don't believe there was a real close-up of the original Rogue off the top of my head.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I found the comment to be the comment makes. Let me go back here. The comment makes sense from the standpoint of the writing staff, because the writer gives you a device for that last point when Tom Lowe's Rogue character tells him that, and then he stares at him, and then he thinks about it, and then it puts two and two together. So that makes sense. But in the first scene where he goes, is like, the only thing you can't change is your eyes. Well, that's great, but you didn't see the other guy's eyes anyway. So yes, he couldn't change his eyes. I gotcha.
Yeah.
You've never seen the man's eyes anyway. How would you know?
It was a great idea, which they unfortunately didn't take care of properly setting up at the beginning of the film. Because otherwise, that actually would have been a really great gotcha moment, especially if you caught it later on. It's like, hey, that first guy's the first thing doesn't match what we see later on with the extreme close-up on their eye. Why doesn't it match? This might be important later.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, I can understand that usually.
Yeah, I think that's all it was. I think and don't forget, it is a movie, so so it might have been cut. There's a very real possibility there might have been an explanation to it. It was a good idea. They had a thought in mind, and they did use the idea after. But in the first instance, it actually didn't make any damn sense at all. And that's kind of the thing that separates some of these movies. It's an action movie. We always love to, and as we always point out, we grade kind of action movies on a curve. We never expect Academy Award winning performances, and we don't expect Academy Award winning writing. But at the same time, sometimes you have to look back on it and you go, you know what? You have a very solid notion. You have some actors who can actually hold their own in the physical element of it. They do a reasonable job in the acting portion of it. But sometimes you'll throw stuff out there like that where it's like, you know what? This doesn't make any fucking sense. Most of this movie, the thing is, that's why I gave it a solid rating. Most of this movie actually makes quite a fair bit of sense. Once you get the motivations of the character into it, you go, okay, I can see why they did that. I can see why they did that. And I can see why they ended up where they ended up. A lot of it actually does make sense.
Yeah, I would agree. Generally, the film itself, for the most part, is pretty well handled, and generally pretty cohesive there. For the most part, everyone's fate is generally settled, although in the case of Crawford, you aren't exactly sure if Crawford is dead or alive at that end of the film when he's basically left by Tom Lone, who was, at this point, fully assumed the Rogue personality. Basically, there's no Tom Lone left, and now I'm just Rogue, so effectively, Rogue did survive all this in some form or another. And generally you have Tom Lone as Rogue leaving off in parts unknown. Presumably, maybe to take his own advice that he'd given both to the survivors of Chang's family, as well as, I can't remember what the daughter of the accused leader's name
I believe it was Kira.
Kira?
I believe.
Yeah. Okay, you're probably right now. So, Chang's family and Kira were both given packages with the same advice, make a new life. Perhaps he took his own advice and decided to make a new life because he had finished his own revenge story, and technically he can now do whatever the hell he wants because there's no one who knows the wires of exactly what went on. And he probably kept one of the kind of golden horse statues there, since only one of them was really shown later on when they originally in a set of two. So he could probably have sold it off, take a lot of money from that, and started anew somewhere else. At least that's my best guess what happened there.
Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. It did actually lead me to a bit of a parallel. That's that final thing, exact thing that you're talking about. So I'm going to find something. Bear with me for just a moment. While I do that, though, entertain the audience with ninja stuff or a magic trick or something.
Had I known there was a setup, I would have set up a proper board behind me. We could have had maybe like a spreadsheet section or something like that, or some kind of a board where I could just draw random shit. How's it going, Ninja Bear? Haven't seen you in a while. Weren't you on the lower shelf last episode? How the hell did that happen? Anywho, last time I was around, or in very recent times, the general family and I, which includes Carl's there, ended up passing by a Denny's, I believe just the other day, literally yesterday, I have to think about it, and I found something interesting. While it wasn't crinkle cut fries they had there, they had wavy fries. To tell you the difference there, crinkle cut is more of a kind of a horizontal cut there for the wave design, but wavy fries is more vertical, so it's basically along the length of it. And I'm not sure if Carl's is actually done looking up his stuff yet, because I can't tell from his angle. But basically, it's interesting there, but it kind of defeats the purpose, because, well, yes, if you have the extra designs, and you can indeed taste the ripples there, the problem is, because of the extra length there, you're basically having the exact same problem with your regular, standard French fry there, and that there's nothing extra in order to hold the extra sauce or condiments there. It will slip, if you put on ketchup, it will slip off just as easily as if you had done it with normal French fries. It's a good idea, but the execution still needs some work there, is all I'm saying. For that, you really need your crinkle cut chips, or crinkle fries, and ripple potato chips. Unless you want to do the bastard thing with the Tostitos and their bowl-shaped dips, or dipping chips, which is quite frankly, at that point, you wanted a tiny bowl. That's what you really wanted there. What are you doing? Get that weak-ass shit off my table. Get me some ripple chips, damn you. I did not want tortilla chips. I wanted potato chips with ripples, so I can taste the ripples.
I really could just leave you there for a while. That would be fantastic. But I actually have found what I'm looking for. Bear with me for 2 seconds. Just hang tight for one moment, and I promise I will show what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just trying to find it here. Bear with me for a sec. There we go. All right. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to put myself on the screen here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's really grainy as hell, but do you know where this screen capture comes from?
I can't say I remember.
All right.
My head.
So, this here was actually, if as memory serves, I actually went into, I'm going to take it off the screen now. I actually went into, now I don't have my overlay. It'll be back in a minute. I actually took that off of, I went searching in Google for images. The whole premise that because what I had was destroyed, and now I'm taking full-fledged vengeance, that is supposed to be, as part of the story, that's supposed to be the representation of Kaiser Soze from The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had the chance to watch The Usual Suspects before?
I recall watching that thing. I believe I borrowed that off you at some point in time.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago, so I can't exactly remember the full details. Although that kind of also goes with the whole unreliable narrator, which, in case we end up doing that film, I'm not going to say much more about that one.
Well, the thing is, I would love to do that film, I'll be honest with you. Let me come back here. I would very much love to do The Usual Suspects as a film. However, if we were going to do it, I would probably do it in a format where we'd record the thing and then actually have editing in it. And then also the other thing is, it's not really an action movie.
That's a fair point. Unfortunately, with that kind of film, it's a very good movie. I'd actually recommend that movie over this one.
Hold on a second. Wait.
Yeah.
I'd actually recommend The Usual Suspects over.
I would recommend
The Usual Suspects over 99.9%. I would recommend The Usual Suspects over every single movie we watched. There isn't a single movie.
I wouldn't go that far.
Name one movie.
If you want to say about in terms of an actual good film, then yes. If you're talking about actual quality films, then yes, easily there. But
that's my point.
Yeah, if you want entertaining films, then screw you, buddy. I'll recommend a bunch of Schwarzenegger films just for sheer entertainment value, not because they're good movies, but because they're entertaining.
Don't make me come over there and slap you. We will have this. We will have this battle to the death. Don't you even reference The Usual Suspects destroys anything Schwarzenegger has ever done. Please.
We don't watch Schwarzenegger films because he can act. It's because he can't act. And because he has the one-liners that are written into the script constantly. That's why we watch Schwarzenegger. We watch it because it's entertaining. Not because it's great cinematography here. Although arguably there are some really nice films that Schwarzenegger starred in that could be considered relative or definitely classics, but still technically if you want to go for actual quality film, yeah, no, they'd still be well below that.
In all seriousness, as much as I love action movies, there isn't a single sequence in any movie, any action movie we've covered, and there isn't a single sequence in any Schwarzenegger movie ever, and I've watched most of them, there isn't a single sequence in any of those movies that can touch the scene when the cop figures out that he was talking. Well, this movie is like 20 years old, so if you consider this to be a spoiler, God help you. When the guy figures out that he'd been talking to Kaiser Soze the whole time, that is just brilliance.
Generally, yeah, that's what. It's one of the best uses of unreliable narrator as a thing in a film that I can think of. And generally, it's. Well, that's another thing. Very short review. Watch that film. Very entertaining. Going back to the actual film we're talking about. This one, though, where were we?
I'll be honest with you. As far as tangents go, I very much enjoy the excuse to talk about The Usual Suspects, and Kevin Spacey's the national treasure. Watch House of Cards. Continue, please.
I think he has at least a small talking part in the next Battlefield game off the top of my head, but that's another story entirely. Basically, most stuff he's involved in, Kevin Spacey tends to be good. That's what we're saying here. And moving back to war with not related to Chong Li and Action Bold Man, where were we? You were saying basically.
Did you just say Chong Li?
Not the not Chong Li.
Jet Li.
I know it's Jet Li. I said that's
Chong Li's next time.
I said not Chong Li.
Not Chong Li on the brain. I know you want to talk about Chong Li.
That's because, quite frankly, it's more entertaining. For all the wrong reasons, but more entertaining.
All right, please go on. Where were we?
You were the last one talking. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, okay. Let me come back here. I think the last thing we were talking about before. See, your thing about Schwarzenegger pissed me off. Oh, I remember. I remember now. I was talking about the comparison with Kaiser Soze. The reason why being that the premise was, now again, the unreliable narrator, but the premise was that, his family, I think in a similar way his family had been killed. No, you know what it was? Because I'm just trying to think. I have to rewatch the movie. Basically, his family life had been violated, and as a result, he ended up burning everything down, killing everything, destroying everything, and then went to destroy all of his enemies and their families and everything. Basically, a scorched earth. He just went and destroyed everything. You ruined his existence, his family life, and now he's going to ruin you and everything around you. Well, basically, that's effectively what Jet Li's character here has done. His family was killed. He killed the original rogue, burned the house down, used the body to basically mask, to fake his own death, and then got plastic surgery in order to completely eliminate, himself and become this other person in order to infiltrate the Yakuza and destroy them. But in the process, in order to accomplish this, he destroys the Yakuza. He destroys the Triad. He sets them to war against one another so they can kill each other. He kills people all over the place. He kills the plastic surgeons that help him change his face. He eliminates loose ends. He kills rather indiscriminately and burns a lot of things to the ground in order to accomplish his goal. Some of these people actually had very little or nothing to do with Rogue killing his family, but as far as collateral damage goes, he managed to have quite a bit of it.
Yeah, generally anything that was there that could be killed, either directly, indirectly, or you could get them to kill themselves. That's kind of what he did on that one in the general course of the film, and probably that's why the original focus of the film was supposed to be on him, and why the film was originally named Rogue to begin with. I would say generally most of the stuff involving Jet Li's character tended to be the better stuff in the film there. At least it was the most noticeable. Especially when he started really screwing with people later on. I'm still basically drawing an entire blank on the first parts of the film leading up to Tom Lone's death and a little bit past that until Rogue gets back in the picture, because honestly it was really blasé. It's your standard stuff. There was almost nothing absolutely memorable, at least in my viewing, for that section.
That's because you were spending most of the time thinking about Chong-Li. You're already in the future, man. And then you're just coming up with ways to piss me off, talking about Schwarzenegger when we're talking about Usual Suspects. How dare you?
I don't know, man.
I just want you to know Kaiser Soze's coming over there to burn down your village. And everything in it.
Joke's on you. The village is already burned to the ground.
He's burning your ashes down. And the ashes of the ashes. And the bear.
The bear will not be touched. The villagers, they're on fire, along with the thatch roof cottages. It was not meant to be. But the bear, you leave the bear alone, goddamn you.
Kaiser Soze. That's all I got.
I think then, for the most part, what's the best way to think of this? I'm trying to think really if there's anything that hasn't been covered with this film. The thing is, the film is technically sound enough. It does a lot of things right. The chase scene involving Statham and Lee's characters, they're actually pretty alright.
Let's talk about, let me throw something at you. Let's talk about one more thing and then we'll wrap it up. Because it is, I'll come back here for a second. It is a little bit by the numbers. It is actually, like I said, a solid film. The fight scene with Jet Li and the Yakuza, when he's trying to get to the Yakuza leader, is quite well done. He ends up blowing up part of their, part of his place in order to get access to him. He ends up killing many triad guys by blowing them up as well. So he used explosives. If you want to establish, you know what? Let me throw this one at you. Here's an interesting thing. Depending on how you feel about various things, Jason Statham's character is trying to get revenge for his partner. Part of it, though, is also fueled by guilt because he, in effect, set things in motion that allowed this to happen. So, he's basically trying to make amends in a way that he thinks would make amends by trying to get revenge for his partner. The other one is trying to get revenge for his family, but in doing so, he basically kills indiscriminately for the most part. Now, most of the people he ends up killing are triad or Yakuza, basically people who are bad in their own way as well. Now, clearly he demonstrates a disregard for a lot of things. He does spare the wife and the daughter of the triad leader, Shang, I believe. He does spare them, but everybody else he ends up killing for the most part. But at the same time, in order to kill a couple of the, I believe it was the triad guys, or it might have been Yakuza, the ones who were in the brothel or whatever it was. In order to kill them, he sets he sets an explosive device on one of their dogs, and in effect kills the dog and most of the guys around it through shrapnel and things. Now, normally when you have dogs being killed, usually that's a bad guy move. But at the same time, Statham, the other side of it, is not exactly a good guy either. He's kind of a bad guy in a different way as well. So, is there actually a good guy in this movie?
There's a good guy right there. Why is he the good guy in this film? Because he wasn't in this film. thus he could do no wrong. In terms of the actual answer, though, there really isn't a good guy in this film. There's no good guy. There's a bunch of bad guys. It's various levels of bad, and generally, if there was anyone good, it was probably Tom Lone prior to his old family getting killed at that point. At which point, then we just have Rogue, aka Revenge Lone, just kind of doing his thing in order to get revenge.
So Asian Kaiser Soze.
As opposed to Action Baldwin, yes.
So basically, coming back, at best, you could almost say that the Rogue character is sort of an anti-hero, but not really. Because really, at the end of the day, all right, he accomplished his task, but even at the end, if you think about it technically, Kira was not around during that final bit. So he kills her father. In this case, understandable given that he ordered the hit. So this is his revenge. His final revenge is to kill the father. And then sends his severed head to the daughter, who had nothing to do with the thing in the first place.
From what they've shown earlier in the film, Kira is not exactly a good person herself, quite frankly.
True, but she actually had no direct involvement in this thing.
Maybe not this thing, but it seems to heavily imply other things and due to the direct tie with the business, as opposed to maybe the only other hypothetical good people, or maybe the remaining family of the Triad gang, Chang's family, who, while they were aware of what Chang was doing, weren't directly connected and were attempting to keep themselves out of it. Or at least not directly as part of the business. They were just the person's family. They're there, but they're not really there in an active sense. Which is possibly why they were the only ones really spared from everything. There's your good people, I guess.
So in conclusion, everyone in the movie is a bastard.
Maybe Crawford's family were maybe the only other good people because they weren't involved in any of this shit. It was Crawford doing all this awful shit.
I think that might be the reason why this movie probably didn't hit another level. It's hard to kind of get behind. From the standpoint of a martial arts, movie and an action film, there's plenty to enjoy in terms of the actual action sequences. But if you're looking at it from a storytelling standpoint, it's kind of tough to sell the idea that you've got an entire film where you can't actually root for anybody because really there were no winners at the end, I would say, probably.
You have an entire film full of awful people. In one form or another, except for those which were actually legitimate innocent and were probably just caught in the crossfire, and you can count those on one hand, more often than not. It's not a feel-good movie, and it doesn't have any of this guy. I am not saying anything else. You can switch the camera back to you if you have not already.
It was far more fun to drag that out just a little longer. I think that's actually the problem. I'll be honest with you. I think the issue is that there's actually no good guy at all. So it's like you look at it, you've got your matchup, but regardless of who wins, everybody loses, including possibly the audience. Oh well. So anyway, since you got it up there, let's talk about what next week's show is going to be. Or specifically on Monday. It's only going to be a couple of days. Now it's back on you.
It is back on me? I can't tell this one. Alright. As you can probably tell, I am looking forward to this film. Why? I'm not sure why. But here's a hint. It sounds like Chong Li! Chong Li! Chong Li! Chong Li! It has a little headband. It's a very angry Asian guy that's yelling. I don't know what the hell's going on in the background noise of Carlos's house at this point, but it's got this angry Asian guy that's really built on there. That happens to be, if you are playing more video games, in this case, if you've ever played specifically the older kind of beat-em-up series known as Double Dragon, you ever look at the Abobo? Especially, it was more apparent in some of the other versions are basically Abobo-esque, but the Abobo is effectively based off Chong Li's character. It's just this one really built dude that punches through stuff, particularly brick walls. So that's another reason I like this character. He inspired the Abobo. And the Abobo is a fun thing. It's a fun guy. Punches down brick walls. Most of the time drawn with a kind of a... What's the word? It's kind of the same kind of mustache as Hogan has. I can't remember what that's called right now. Armbar mustache? What is that kind of mustache called, actually? I don't even remember.
I think it's a handlebar mustache.
Yeah. Often, especially now drawn with a handlebar mustache. Fun times. What a place of Little Dragon now.
As you can see, the man has a serious passion for it. We will be covering that one in a couple of days, and as you can see, just so you're aware, let me make one more point, and then we'll talk about this real quick. So, solid movie. You can get it in a lot of the bargain bins. It's worth a watch. But as you said, I think the ambiguous nature of the characters by the end, I think hurt it. Because on paper, it has a lot of things going for it. I just think what hurt it a lot was exactly what we talked about at the end. You really can't figure out who to root for at the end because it's like, well, this guy caused this guy's family to be murdered, but on the other hand, this guy ends up killing a whole bunch of people who may or may not have anything to do with it, including the people who helped him get to the people he was trying to kill because they were loose ends and he didn't want to leave any lying around. He demonstrates a little bit of morality in the sense that he doesn't kill women and children. But this one here, out of guilt, gets in the way of this one getting killed by a sniper that he brought into it. And he felt really bad about betraying him. So therefore, the good guy is...
So what we're trying to say is, one of them basically goes out to kill everyone else, but he doesn't kill kids. So what you're trying to say is it's an Asian Tony Montana, minus less drugs? Is that what you're saying here?
Tony Montana would be awesome. I'd also love to cover Scarface. Also not an action movie.
I don't give a damn. Let's find an excuse to cover it anyway.
All right. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, the normal movie show will do Scarface.
Excellent.
And the usual suspects.
I actually have no problem with that whatsoever. If we can probably do those as like extra episodes, maybe. Legitimately, if you're down for that, I'm down for that.
We're going to discuss this because I see absolutely no reason we can't do that, but I think the format's going to be a little different than the way we do it here. But we'll figure something out.
Yep.
Let me go back to this. All right. Next episode, Bloodsport. We won't talk about it right now because that's going to be the discussion for the next episode. But as you can see here, you can get it on Blu-ray in a double pack with Time Cop. That's pretty cool. So obviously, this is available in like bargain bins now anyway, as it is. I'll tell you ahead of time that as a Blu-ray transfer, it's not ridiculously amazing. They're not going to digitally remaster this thing. It's really not worth digitally remastering, to be honest, because I'm pretty sure the film that was used for this is some of that really cheap 80s grainy stock.
Yeah.
There's only so many things you can do with it. But at the same time, I think given the passion that Manyninjas demonstrated moments ago for the adversary of Jean-Claude Van Damme in this film, clearly we're going to have a few things to discuss, and clearly the film still has kind of a passionate following to this day, and probably is one of, if not his best films. And we'll be discussing that one on the next episode of Action Movie Show, which is the 20th episode. And hopefully you give it more love than you did to Die Hard.
At least this one, maybe the Die Hard didn't get that much love because it was a holiday film, and people were sick of winter because at least in this region there was winter and then there was summer. There was no spring. Spring was canceled this year. At least that's how I feel about it.
Indeed. So that's what's going to happen coming up in the next episode, which will be only in a few days. We'll make arrangements amongst ourselves, and we'll try to make that happen for everybody. Why don't we do shameless plugging, Manyninjas? Go ahead.
All right, let's see. Shameless plugging, shameless plugging. Not too long ago, I put up some thoughts regarding the recently announced what will be the next sequel or the next of the new generation Mortal Kombat games, Mortal Kombat X. So I put up some thoughts based on what had been shown in the trailer and kind of little thoughts and speculation what's going on there. So that's on my YouTube channel. Of course, my website handle or my website is iam manyninjas.com. I am at Manyninjas on Twitter. Additionally, I should be doing or getting back to my Retro Ninja gaming stuff. In order to kind of get around some of the issues I was having with the controller setup there, I actually found in a local gaming shop a nice little Super Nintendo the USB adapter, which actually can fit 2 slots on there. It's the brand is RetroLink, which is basically if you want to look it up, maybe I can pass Carl's thing on or a thing that I found on Amazon that has the same product on there. And
Yeah, I can link it, no problem.
Yeah, this generally, from what I was experimenting with, this actually really works as a nice alternative to trying to play some of the older retro titles I have with kind of a spotty PlayStation 2 controller that I have here, which, as you can guess, the D-pad doesn't work quite as well for those sort of things, among other things. So that should be coming back up in order. And basically, there are probably some other comings and goings, but I don't want to say anything just yet until I have something more concrete to talk about. How about you, Carlos?
So I'm working on the usual stuff. We've got these episodes. I've been working on some plans and ideas for the other projects that I want to do. The thing about it, I haven't talked about it too much. Part of the reason why is because I don't have a definite timetable on it. So there's no point in me doing that. But to keep track of what's going on, you've got carlosalcazar.org and you've got @carlosalcazar2 where you get the postings for the videos. So as soon as this video gets published, you're going to see the posting on it, and then when I add it to the Action Movie Show playlist, you'll see that on Twitter as well. So definitely, like, subscribe, check out, what's going on. We'll keep you guys posted on it. Feel free to comment if you have any suggestions. We're trying to play along with it. We'll probably try to do that regular movie show. It'll be like special episodes, but I think the format will be a little different. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do that yet. We'll discuss that. But we'll definitely let everybody know once we figured it out, and then we'll post the video up. We may even do editing. I know.
It probably means me. I'll probably do the editing once we get things set up there.
How dare you? You question my skills? How do you know I don't have mad editing skills?
Even if you did, you have mad scheduling issue skills as well.
It's called work. Try it sometime.
I did. It was horrible. I wouldn't recommend it, folks.
Indeed. So, for myself and Manyninjas, that's going to cover this episode. We will figure out exactly how we're going to set up to record the next one, and then we'll put that one up as well, and we'll go from there. I think that only leaves one major issue. So we figured out what Bloodsport's going to be. We'll talk amongst ourselves. On the Bloodsport episode, we will determine what the next couple of movies will be, and then we'll proceed from there to see where we end up. So for myself and Manyninjas, that's Action Movie Show. Thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone needs me, I suppose I need to go to the store in order to get myself my own damn rippled potato chips. Take care.